Hello everybody out there. So for today's video, this will be the second time that I've done this. I tried to record it before, I tried to stream it before, but for whatever reason nothing was working. So here we are again doing this video. So the video today is going to be on don't take this dating advice, which I swear I just repeat myself when I say like what the video is about usually within the title. So if you didn't already guess, you do know now. So it's don't take this dating advice. I kind of realized recently talking to more friends and family, and I don't want to say that I realized it recently because it's something that I've thought about before, but I want to say it's been like more like just in my brain. So again, doing the video on it. So here we are today. So the idea of don't take this dating advice comes from the idea that people unfortunately are pulling their dating advice from an unrealistic place. So what do I mean by this? First, I'll give you a quick story, like normal, as far as like what I've heard and kind of what I would recommend within the actual real life example, and then kind of give you the background behind it. So not too long ago, I had a friend of mine, actually ironically enough, lives in Colombia, and he has a friend that he met over the internet, which is kind of random in today's world, but it's true, and she lives in the US. So they've been talking for, 4 to 5 months. He likes her a lot. He feels like she likes him. So what does he do? He asks a friend of his and their significant other what they think about his situation and what they think he should do within regards to the girl that he likes. So what do these two women tell him to do? They tell him, okay, Alejandro, what you need to do is you need to write her a letter. You need to tell her how you feel, that you miss her, that you want to be with her, that you're going to move to the U.S., just all your feelings, put them all in the letter. So what does my man do? He does exactly that. He writes down all this stuff, puts it in a letter, sends it to her. God knows how long it takes mail to get from Colombia to the U.S., but it finally gets to her. And she ends up talking to him via Skype. I believe it was Skype. It doesn't really matter. And tells him that she read the letter and that she doesn't want to talk to him anymore. And that is the end of their relationship dynamic, as it were. Now, obviously, the women that gave my friend this advice were pulling from this ideal bucket or ideal situation. They weren't necessarily pulling from the realistic, real-world bucket that's over here of stuff that actually works. Now, I'm not saying that they were giving him bad advice intentionally or maliciously, but what I am saying is that they're giving him advice from this fantasy bucket of what we think we want, not from the real bucket of what actually works. Why? Because the real bucket hurts people's feelings, and the fantasy bucket is what we're brought up believing that we want, need, and things that'll work. It's not what'll actually work. It's not what would have worked on those women in that situation. It's not what would have worked on the majority of women. It's literally what in that moment they thought sounded the best and what they have been brought up to believe is going to be the right thing for him to do, which is express all his feelings in a letter and be a creepy stalker, which is pretty much what that feels like if you're a girl opening that letter. I mean, all the women who watch this video or dudes who have girls out there, ask them if you sent them a letter and you'd never met them in person and you'd been talking for 4 or 5 months and you confessed all your feelings and put it all on the table through a letter. Ask them if they think you're kind of creepy or kind of a weirdo or kind of a stalker or just some other like negative adjective that they can put on you, or a noun, I guess. They're gonna end up telling you that yeah, you would fall in one of those categories. So obviously, the issue that I really see is that, again, it's not people doing it intentionally or maliciously. The problem is that we're pulling from this bucket. Now, what is this like fake makeup fantasy bucket that we're pulling from? In reality, it starts at a very young age. People are brought up and we're watching these TV shows, these Disney movies, we're reading books. I don't even know, like just in like the media in general. Like now we got the internet, so it's on the internet everywhere. We're seeing all these fake, made-up, fictional stories about how men and women are supposed to interact with each other in a romantic type of way, whether it's dating, marriage, courting, whatever you want to call it, we see it. The biggest culprit at a young age is Disney movies. Disney movies is the ultimate, like, mind, like, washing station for, like, relationships and dating and marriage. because we're brought up from a young age. My generation older is brought up seeing these Disney movies, which is, like I said, like the perfect example that men are supposed to be strong, dominant, chase the woman, chase the woman, chase the woman, and if you chase her enough, you're gonna get her. And if you're the woman, you're the man, if he cares about you, he's gonna fight and battle for you and just overcome everything and chase you and chase you. But in reality, in real life, if men do that and women acted that way, it would be against what actually works and what is actually natural. It's just kind of like made up bullshit is really what it is. So in addition to that, like one more like little random thought on top of that ice cream sundae, like the little cherry, is that it's so interesting to me that people have pushed for Disney to like not make these unrealistic gender roles within their movies. So we start having these Disney movies like Tangled, Frozen, and I can't remember the rest of them, but I got two. So they start making these movies where it's more like female-dominated characters, and that's the main role, is a woman, girl, female, whatever you want to say. That's who the main character is in the Disney movies. But in a lot of them, they still end up finding a guy or a prince or someone. Yes, maybe they don't rescue them, but it's still that motif in young women's minds, children, like, I have to have a man to be happy. At the end of the day, there's a man waiting, there's a guy out there, some bullshit like that. And again, it's just all garbage. It's what we're brought up believing. As we get older, we watch more TV shows, more movies, we read more books, we see more things, and we start realizing, or I guess I don't want to say realizing, but we believe that we're supposed to realize that that women and men's dynamics within dating relationships is this big chase, this big, like, men have to pursue and pursue and pursue, and eventually the woman will give in, or they have to go to the ends of the earth to get the woman's attention. Whatever it is, it's very unhealthy ideas of how, like, actual relationships, actual marriages, actual courting works within the modern world. And it's very unhealthy. And the problem is, we get to adult age, not only do people follow these stereotypes and these actions and what they believe is like the perfect situation and like how things are supposed to be and how women should act when men court them and how men should behave in the courting process, or vice versa, how women should pursue a man, how men should allow themselves to be pursued, whatever it is, whatever you believe, it's coming from this fantasy bucket and it's not reality. The problem is, as adults, as young adults, whatever age group you fall into, we end up starting to give advice that is literally based out of this fantasy bucket, and it's not real. We're giving advice on the ideal situation, on what we believe to be ideal, what we're brought up to believe is perfect or right, or the way we're supposed to date or get married, or how marriages work, and it's not real. It's media. It's literally this social idea that's not grounded in the reality bucket. Now, the problem with the reality bucket is that it's hard and rough, and if the women if the women that my friend Alejandro asked for advice, if they would have told him out of the reality bucket, then he would have got some advice like, hey man, like, in reality, you barely know this girl, she lives in the US, you live in Colombia, you're not intending to actually move to the US, and she's never told you she likes you, she's never really said anything about seeing you in real life, you just have met online and you're friends. Like, the real thing is like, maybe what you should do is try and go visit. That would be step number one. Or tell her like, hey, I kind of have some interest in you, just like over the phone or on Skype, something like that. Or maybe even just flirt and like try and like see if there's reciprocation. But that's not this fantasy bucket. Fantasy bucket is write her a letter, tell her that you love her, that you care about her, you want to be with her, put all your feelings and emotions in a letter and send it to her. And you don't have to see how she reacts, and you can hide behind your pen and paper, and yeah, you just put it all on the line. But if women gave the advice that actually they would respond to and actually like appreciate, or would make them be kind of interested, or at least they would feel like it's not fucking creepy or some stalker guy writing them a letter, then they wouldn't have told them to do that. But the problem, again, is that 80 to 90%, and I'm telling you straight up, 80 to 90% of women are pulling their advice from this fantasy bucket because it's this ideal situation. Now, the other 10 to 20% of people in that bucket tend to be men who also pull from a fantasy bucket. I myself, at a younger age, used to pull what I thought I was supposed to do in dating and relationships from this fantasy bucket of what I saw in TV shows, movies, media, books, everything. Now, on the flip side of things, there is a third bucket. I wait to talk about it because it's kind of like a weird third bucket, because you have the reality bucket, you have the fantasy bucket, and then like the extension of the reality bucket is like the fucked up reality bucket. And that is where 80 to 90% of men pull their advice from within dating and relationships. Now, the other 10 to 20% again is going to be from women that fall into that category. It's where they normally pull their dating advice from. So the 80 to 90% of men that you're asking advice for about dating are going to pull their information from the shit reality bucket. So what is this bad reality or shit reality or fucked up reality bucket look like? The bucket is going to be them giving you advice from their experiences that were negative or bad, or experiences that they've heard or seen their friends go through that were similarly negative or bad. So, good example of this. Say I ask my buddy Matt, I ask him, I say, hey bud, my girl has her phone locked now. It's never been locked before, and she's picking up extra shifts at work on a regular basis, and whatever other bullshit is going on. And Matt sits there and says, hey, in his head, and again, it's not maliciously, it's not coming from a bad or evil place, it's just where the information is coming from for the advice. He says, okay, I had a time before in my life where my girl started locking her phone and she started spending more time at the gym, and a few more of the things that I said line up. So he tells me, again, like, not being disingenuous, not being malicious, and says, hey bud, like, I remember when my girl had her phone locked and she was spending more time at the gym and this and this and this, and she ended up cheating on me. So I would be aware that that might be what's happening. I don't know, da 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 da. And unfortunately, we're getting advice. Men give advice usually from that fucked up bucket, because they've had negative experiences, they've seen people go through negative shit, and if it sounds anywhere in the realm of what they've gone through or seen their friends or heard their friends go through, that's where their advice is coming from. It's coming from a very hurt, upset, frustrated place. Because I don't know why, I'm not saying that it's one's better than the other, but I think men are usually a little more grounded in like the reality and like the harsh logic of it when it comes to dating advice, and women are a little more in like the ideal situation, where men are like in like the ideally fucked up situation. So neither advice is better than the other. They're both going to put you in a path where you're not looking at things in the most ideal way. So the issue that I really have, again, with this whole situation is that I have people and friends in my life who I end up talking to, whether it's 6 months into a relationship, a year in a relationship, or usually it's like I said, it's relationships, to be honest with you, like with not just dating for 2 weeks or some shit like that, where stuff's been going on and they finally bring it to my attention that they're having issues in their relationship. And the issues that I end up finding out, at least for me, that bother me, why I'm making this video ultimately, is number one, they haven't felt comfortable reaching out to anybody for advice in the first place. Now, whether that be because they've gotten bad advice before, because they don't feel comfortable putting their shit out there for the world or for someone else to hear, that's not for me to say. It's based on how they feel. I don't really ask people, why don't you feel comfortable talking to somebody about it? But there is obviously reasons behind that. I think a lot of times people feel very vulnerable, so they don't feel comfortable saying like, hey, I'm dealing with this and I don't know what to do. So asking somebody else is a very vulnerable thing. I can confidently tell you though, if you're in that situation where you're in a relationship where you don't know what to do, or you're having trouble or having issues, you definitely need to be able to find somebody that you can confide in and trust and ask them for advice. And I mean, yeah, if someone gives you shitty advice one time, don't just blow them off in the future. But like, if someone's consistently giving you trash, then yeah, you don't have to throw the person away, but just don't ask them for advice in the future. So my big thing is find someone that you can trust and reach out to. Again, that's a big part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, is that I want people to be able to reach out, and I have no problem being that person for as many people as I possibly can be, because at the end of the day, it sucks when you're trying to date someone or you're in the process of courting someone, which, if courting is kind of an old-fashioned word, I guess you're in the process of trying to get into a relationship with somebody and you don't know what to do, or you're running into a roadblock, or you feel like, excuse me, things aren't going the way you want them to go. You got to find someone to reach out to and be able to ask for advice. I definitely know in my life, it's been very hit and miss on who I can ask, but I know that I do have a couple good people that have been in my corner, especially in the past couple of years, few years, where I can go to consistently if I can't think of something. I try and be very self-reliant since I'm doing this whole process myself, but I definitely would recommend finding somebody that you can reach out to. The other big thing for me is that a lot of times people will end up talking to me and they end up telling me, okay, like, I have reached out to people before and their advice has been shitty and it has fucked shit up. And it's made things not go the way I wanted them to go or not turn out the way I wanted them to turn out. And I feel bad. I feel guilty because they're not reaching out to the right person. And I think that that's a big thing that bothers me. Recently, I had a friend of a friend who was saying that they were having big, fat relationship trouble. And they had asked the friend asked the friend before, like, what do I do? And it's not that the advice that they gave them wasn't the right advice, but it, again, was coming from this bucket of, like, the perfect world. It was coming from this is what would happen in the perfect world, so this is what you should do. But it wasn't coming from the reality bucket. And that's one thing that I can tell you. If you can find yourself a good quality person, like I said, I guess I don't have to be a good quality person as far as like who they are, because it doesn't dictate by their advice. But if you can find yourself someone who's going to give you advice from the reality bucket, someone who's going to like not be a dick about it, not be rude, but just tell you like, this is what's going on, this is the reality, this is my advice. That's also better than finding someone who's going to give you the fucked up reality bucket, because they're going to still give you a skewed version of what's going on. So I guess I'm kind of jumping around, but my idea, I guess, like I'm trying to get at, is it frustrates me a lot, because what ends up happening is people don't give people advice based off of that person in that moment in their situation with the details provided to them. They give them advice from fantasy bucket, fucked up reality bucket. It's never from real world right now. Again, that person, that time, that relationship, that situation. What's going to be best for them with all that information provided. It's like I said, it's so many times it's based off of other biases and other buckets of bullshit advice. So that would be my biggest thing, is make sure that when you ask someone for advice, that what they give you, especially within dating, is practical to your situation, which means that it's going to actually be applicable, it's usable, it's not bullshit, it's not fantasy, it's not some fucked up reality stuff that's jaded one way or the other. It's practical and applicable, and it's also based off of your situation and what's going to be best for you and your relationship dynamic going forward, and something that's actually going to, in your mind, make sense to work and help fix it. Because if it's coming from, like I said, either of these other places, the side bucket or the front fucked up bucket, it's not going to work. You need someone who's going to pull from the reality bucket. So for me, I think that's the biggest thing that I try and give my friends, family, and just other random people that I do talk to, I guess I would call them acquaintances at that point in time, who do ask for advice, is I definitely try to be that person who's pulling from that situation where it's based off of you and where you're at, what's going on with your life, and it's not just random bullshit being biased from whatever experiences I've been either raised with or experienced in my life. So that would be my ultimate advice as far as it goes. Like I said, so just find a person if you can, and make sure that the advice that you're being given is based off of actual good quality stuff. So at the end of the day, that's what I got for my YouTube people. I'm gonna keep staying on here for a little bit longer so I can answer some live questions, and that's it. So again, for all the YouTube peeps, stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys real soon. Have a great day. Bye.